my attention to Izumi and ask, so what is it that you think that we can do to actualize the commitment by those states who actually possess nuclear weapons to achieve the total elimination of their nuclear arsenals? In some ways, the hardest question of all.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I really want to support President Mehta's words, advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. Let's advocate, because this sustained political pressure, if you will, our voices are sustained, sustainably given to all governments really do matter. And then it has actually made difference in the past, as Peter Maurer also pointed out. But this said, I think, we also need to make sure that we have practical arguments as well. And those practical arguments are, of course, political and security arguments. Nuclear weapons are very expensive, and they threatened nuclear weapon possessing states as much as their intended targets, right? So these are hard facts, perhaps often overlooked by some of those states that rely their security doctrines on nuclear weapons. So I think we need to make those practical arguments as well. Now, this said, I'm sure you will agree with me, Ruth, also, that we don't believe that nuclear disarmament is something that can happen overnight. And so we need to also take one step at a time, something that could be actually changed. And that's why we have opportunities such as the review conference of NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and of course, next year, the first meeting of states treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. At NPT, I think it will be a really important opportunity to start coming up with some real agreements on how to reduce the risk of nuclear war in a very practical sense. And there are many things that we can do. States that have nuclear weapons really have to look at how to reduce the reliance on nuclear weapons in terms of their security strategies. What are the kinds of risk communication? How can they increase the transparency about their nuclear doctrines? All these very practical, pragmatic issues will, of course, pending, as Peter Maurer said, pending elimination of nuclear weapons, these measures will increase our collective security. That includes, of course, the security of nuclear weapon states as well. So let's, whilst we talk about elimination, how to go about it, let's demand in each and every country to come up with the real practical measures to reduce the chances or the risk of nuclear weapons actually being used. And I think as a starting point, it is very important. And as I said, there will be a practical opportunity that is coming up in the beginning of next year when those states meet in New York to discuss how the past commitments have been fulfilled and how to go about further commitments being made. My emphasis goes, therefore, that those nuclear weapon states that have made commitment to various measures, they have agreed on many wonderful things, only that they have to actually implement them. So for us to be able to move the governments, our consistent, really sustained efforts in terms of our voices being heard will be absolutely necessary. And a TPNW States Parties Conference in March next year will again be an important place in raising awareness about the consequences of nuclear weapons and the possible ways to actually reduce that consequences being actualized. So let's take advantage of those opportunities. I would like to end this remark by something also a little bit positive. Let's take some of the recent positive steps as a momentum. Positive, I mean, the largest nuclear weapon states, the United States and the Russian Federation, are now engaged on the regular basis, almost on a monthly basis, to have actual, very practical discussions in Geneva. And that seemed to be continuing, and they seem to be both very serious about these talks. So we need to turn this very important first step into a greater momentum. And for that, we need the voices from all sorts of civil society actors and citizens themselves to push for that.
Well, that's a really helpful segue into what I'd like to ask you next. So we know that all of our collective efforts as international organizations, myself thinking through the medical lens, all the things we do to improve health, strengthen communities, and eradicate disease will be instantly wiped out if nuclear weapons are used. So my question for each